Hello, everyone. So, as you may know, I have recently released the source code to my old game engine. Doesn't really have a name other than just the Duet engine, I guess, because it's the engine that I was using to make Duet in C++. There will be a link in the video description if you want to go check it out. Although I would advise that it is not a particularly well programmed game engine. So don't look at it as like this is how you should do a game engine. But it's just there for fun or whatever. Unfortunately, it's probably going to be pretty hard for anybody to compile it. I'm not even sure if I could get it to compile if I wanted to. But even if you can get it to compile, I didn't include any assets, some of which you will need. You will definitely need some of these and possibly some other things. I don't think you need this. And part of that, I just didn't include them because I don't actually own the rights to some of those assets. They belong to the artist. But I thought it'd be fun to show off the engine a little bit and show off how the editor works and things like that. So I figure we would hop in. So this is the editor for Duet. It is obviously very keyboard based, as you can see by all of the insane amount of different options here. Of course, there's even a button to turn that off because you might not want that when you're working on a level. Most of these options I don't particularly remember, so you may have to bear with me while I remember some of them. But when you bring up the editor, you'll have view here. This checkerboard is really just kind of to give you something that's easy to see other than a flat background color, although you can hit G to change to a mode, which is a preview mode, which will show the actual world background color. As it would look in game. Like this is the game preview mode, and this is what the view would look like in game. Of course, you can zoom in all the way, and then it's more or less the same screen. But if you zoom all the way out, then it still shows you what you would see on screen if you were not zoomed. Okay, so in order to build a level, the first thing you would have to do is load a texture. But actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to load up a currently existing level. We will look at World 1, which I have changed the name of. This is a sort of level that has some random smattered assets here. If I put it in game preview mode, you can obviously see that there's different assets here. And the sky is blue instead of white. I think you can change that. And the rest of the level is just all kind of gray boxed out, right? So I think I will still make a new level just because I want to show how you would go about that. So you do need some assets to build a level. The assets are loaded by clicking down here, which brings up this sort of command line type interface with some weird things that you can do. It tells you how to batch load things and whatever. So the first thing that I will want to do, actually, there's some more assets in here. I was trying to pull assets from an old project of mine, but I decided to just go ahead and use the Duet ones. So I don't think I can do this. I don't think it gets subfolders. Yeah, okay, it actually says here it will not load subfolders. So if I want to get the World 1 stuff, I need to go World 1 background and do this, and it will load all of the assets there for the background stuff. And if I want to get the foreground, then we do World 1 again, and we do foreground, and that will get all of the foreground assets. So all the assets get shown along the bottom here. You can press the space bar to pan across there. I don't think you can do anything else really. And when you hover over them, you get a preview of what the asset looks like at 100% scale. So that may not actually be the size that it comes in at when you click. And so you don't click and drag them. You actually have a active asset is the way it works. So for example, if I wanted this dirt asset, I would click on it, and now that is my active asset. And if I go out here and I right click, I will add that asset to the scene. Again, things look different in this mode than they will in the game. If you want to look at it as it would look in the game, you hit G. For example, things are darker a little bit, I think, than they normally would be. I may be wrong about that, but anyway, that's how you can do that. So you can, of course, move things around, and you can also, there are different move tool modes. Let's see, what is the way to switch the move mode? Okay, so it is M. Well, I brought up that, so that's a bit later. So there's M, which is move mode. I should have probably changed these, and then there's R, which is rotate mode, so you can, of course, just rotate it. And there is scale mode, which allows you to scale the thing, which I think is broken if you're rotated, actually. You can lock 45 step rotate by holding shift, and scale, I think, yeah, scale works fine here if you are not rotated. I never fixed the rotation because I couldn't be arsed to learn the linear algebra to do it, I suppose. This scale works kind of weird, but is a uniform scale. You can, I'm not sure if you can do anything to modify scale. But yes, there is a shift if you hold scale, which will keep the thing uniform. It doesn't reset it to its default size, but it does allow you to scale it up and down without worrying about it getting moved up. And there is also this mode, which allows you to edit the UVs, basically. So you can shift the thing around so that it gets cropped off on the edge if that was necessary, or you can grab the edge to crop it in. So, you know, for example, say I had a bush and I didn't want this half of the bush, I can crop that in. So it's just a good way to edit different, you know, the assets that you have and make the most of what you have. So of course, you know, you would build out a level sort of by just bringing in different assets and, you know, scaling them and rotating them and things like that to build out the space of the level. Yeah, so that's pretty much how that works. I believe I have changed the foreground. Okay, so you also have other things. There are different layers that you can place assets on. I think it's set up by default to only show you layers that are behind there. If you want to see, again, like this, then you can hold or press G to go into that mode. So the different layers have different levels of parallax. So there's, I forget how many layers there are. There's like 7 layers. They all have different parallax. So if I go back and, for example, place a tree trunk way back here, it will have a different level of parallax. I'm obviously unskilled with this engine, but you know, you could place a tree trunk back here if you wanted. M to move. I do not know if there's a way to duplicate objects. I don't think there is. If there is, okay, yes there is, W. Okay, so I can W to duplicate objects in case I wanted to do something like that. There is also a way to adjust the object parallax independent of the layer that it's on, which is this number here. 1 is the default parallax, and I believe as the number gets higher, it is closer. Okay, so as the number gets higher, it's closer, and as the number gets lower, it's further away. So you can, you know, kind of coarsely adjust parallax by choosing the main layers, and then you can also adjust parallax this way. Now, parallax does not necessarily ensure that objects are ordered properly, because I never did a proper, like, just Z functioning thing, so it's not actually sorted. So you do need to fix the sorting sometimes, and there are buttons to fix sorting. I don't remember what they all are. I think it's home takes it to the top, so that's like the quickest, most coarse setting, and most of the times that's good enough, right? Is to just have coarse settings. And Okay, yeah, it's up, page down. So you can page down to go back through. And then, of course, there might be situations where you have a big object like this, that this really isn't what you would probably do that for. But say, for example, you had an object that was mostly see-through, like a big cloud that you wanted back here to give you a certain, misty look or something. And you wanted to select something that was behind it. There is a key to do that, which is up and down. So you can press the down key, and that will put your cursor on the object that is behind the thing that would normally be selected. I'm kind of rambling, but there's a lot of different things here. I keep bringing this up. This is E. Okay, so E, is that up here? Yeah, E is the properties editor, which is particularly hard to see in this view. Let me try going out of game view. Now, it's still hard to see. So let's turn off that, and let's see. If you're not selecting an object, E will edit the background color, so I can just make the background color black, just so we can see these menus. So the properties editor gives you all sorts of options that you can use to adjust the color of the object that you're looking at. So of course you got a multiply value. So this color value gets multiplied with the thing you're looking at, so you can make it that color, which is good for white, right? But if, for example, you had a thing that was dark, that was black, then you might want to use an add value. So let's go back up to, which layer is this? Okay. This layer, you might want to add a color so that you can get the thing. Of course, if you wanted to make it just a bright white thing, you could do that. You can also add to alpha if you wanted to do that for some reason. There's a multiply alpha if you want to make something more or less faded out. There's also a blend. I think I'm still on okay, the other layers. Here we go. There is a blend. I forget what blend does. What does blend do? What does blend do? Okay, yes, you have to turn on the alpha for blend because it blends with a static color. Like this is, for example, in many situations you might not want to actually multiply a color to get the color or add a color to get a color. You may just want a flat color like red, like an orange color, and blend a little bit into it. This is useful. This seems like it wouldn't be useful generally, but it's useful for things like atmospheric effects. So say I might have, let's pick something with a little more definition to it, I suppose. One of these rocks should be good. So say I had this rock, then I might, for example, want to have a series of rocks that are further back on different layers even. I went forward a layer. So I might want to have them further back here, and then as they go further back, I might want them to gradually fade into a background color. So in that case, I would do a sky color, so I would set this to the sky color so that it matched up. Of course, I can edit the sky color to match up to that, more or less. There is copying and pasting of properties, but it doesn't work across everything. So, but yeah, so I might want that, and then this thing is gradually fading back there, right? Now you can copy, here I can copy this, and I can go back up to this layer, and then I can edit this, and I can paste and get those settings, and then I could blend it back a little bit, so you could kind of do something where you have the same asset. I believe you can flip assets. I have turned on debug controls. There is this debug view, so if you want to look at stuff like this, you can see stats about objects that you're looking at and things like that that are mostly useless, but they're there in case you wanted to. Let's see. I believe you can flip that. Yes, you can hit F to flip an object. I don't know that you can flip it vertically, but I don't suppose you need to, because you can probably, yeah, a horizontal flip and a rotate is the same as a vertical flip. So there's plenty of ways to manipulate objects and change things. There's also some fancier stuff here. If you want to do a hue shift or a saturation boost or something like that, you can get that. You've got brightness and contrast. Lots of fancy shader stuff that is built in there. There's toggle blend mode in case you want it to be additive. So lots and lots and lots and lots of ways to reuse assets that may or may not have been actually necessary, but I certainly implemented them. You can also turn on colorize mode if you want, for example, something that's similar to the colorize hue adjust in Photoshop. So where you've got static hues basically that get applied. So, you know, -136 is going to be that. And if I went over to another object and then I changed that to colorize mode and then -136 or something close to that, it would also be purple. So that's sort of the idea with colorize, right? So there's lots of things that you could do with the art. What are other things? There is, I believe, it might not show unless you, yeah, okay. So grid snapping, you can turn on grid snapping if you want to move things by the grid. It only shows the grid if you're all the way zoomed in, again, because I couldn't be arsed to do it properly, and most of the time you were editing zoomed in. That is not particularly useful for these type of things, because most of the time you're not really caring about the grid when you're, you know, putting this down and trying to put some grass on it. You kind of don't want the grid. You kind of want to not have a grid, so you can go in here and put your grass on here, however, right? So, yes, there's lots of ways to edit things. What are some other things you can do? Oh, okay, yes. So, generally this is just for art stuff, right? So you also need to worry about gameplay stuff that's in the levels, which, because I did this in a really weird way, these things are totally different. It's not just a different kind of entity, they're totally different things. But you hit Control, which will switch you into Entity Edit mode, and your primary type of entity is going to be collision type. It's just like when you have a texture selected and you click right to put the texture down, you right click to add an entity of that type. Most entities don't really care about textures. They have their own textures. For example, this is the collision box texture, and it will appear that way no matter what you have selected down here. Again, this is a situation where grid snapping is more useful because you might want to, for example, just build out your level very quickly by clicking and dragging things that are snapped to the grid. There's still some weirdness with the grid snapping, but generally it works well enough to get the job done in a lot of cases. So, for example, if you are building out a level, you will want to have solid stuff. That is on the layer in front of the players, isn't it? I think you're free to put collision stuff on different layers, but it really doesn't matter. You only want to put them on layer 1, which is the foreground, I believe. Maybe layer 2. I really don't remember. There's one layer that they need to go on. Let me load back up level. Well, we'll do this. Let's load up level 2. Actually, it's not level 2. It's world 2. So that we can see what layer they're on. Okay, so it is layer 2 that we need to worry about. Let's turn off that grid snapping. But generally speaking, that's what you do. I think there is a thing to make these not transparent. I am not sure what it is. Okay, so it's not that. What it is actually that is that it shows it in the other views. So Anywho, so there's the different collision types. Those are all, they work more or less what you would want. If you want to switch between different entities, you use O and P to go between different entities. They all get highlighted in the editor when you're looking at them, except for the base collision type for some reason, because it's probably bugged. There's white buttons, which are collision boxes that come on when you press a white button. There are black button collision entities, which come on when you press a black button. There are, let's see, gray button, which is, again, comes on when you press a gray button. There are the red ones, which are only solid to the red player. Green ones, only solid to the green player. There's these, which go away when you solve a puzzle. There's death zones, which say death zone on them, and kill the player if the player touches them. Green death zones only kill the green player. Red death zones only kill the red player. And there are white buttons and black buttons and gray buttons. There are particle systems, which I do not believe work. I'm not even sure you can add them. I never implemented them properly. There are player starts, which you'll see over here. You can scale player start if you wanted, although it doesn't actually do anything. Green player starts, markers. Markers are for the camera, I believe. It might be used for other things, I'm not sure. But generally speaking, all a marker is a thing that has a index number that you can look up, and it can be referenced from another entity type that might care about a marker. There's exit zones, respawn zones. Respawn zones, of course, are if you die here, although I don't think you can die in this first room, but if you did die, then you would respawn there. For some reason, there's multiple death zones. Anyway, whatever. There's some weird different entities that probably don't need to be there. There's the lasers, which fire lasers if you get under them. Sign, which is a leftover thing that doesn't work anymore. And grass, which is also a leftover thing that does not work anymore. So those are all of your entity types, I believe. And that's generally how it works. At some point, I implemented a vector-based collision system. I do not see that in this build. So this may be a build, actually, that's before I implemented that. Well, actually, I re-implemented, I guess, because it was there, and then I took it out in a newer thing. So anyway, that's the editor. That's the stuff that it can do. You can, like I said, always load in textures and build out your levels with different things, right? So, yeah, good. It is not the greatest editor in the world. It's certainly functional. It has a lot of functionality to it, but it is not by any stretch of the imagination easy to use. It is only really usable because I spent a long time in it, fiddling around with it and working on stuff. So anyway, that, I suppose, more or less covers it. I guess I could show you the actual game, although you've kind of maybe seen it before. I think if I run this, okay, yeah, because I don't have, it always loads World 1. I was going to build a different World 1, but I don't think I want to spend that much time. So it always loads World 1, which is not running at a good frame rate, probably because of OBS. Let's try debug. Let's see what debug mode does. Yeah, it's still running at a bad frame rate. Anyway, so the frame rate's not great because of OBS. I think you can go to the next level somehow. I'm not really sure. Oh, I can change the resolution, but that probably won't make a difference because anything that's slow about it is probably because it's probably a debug build or something, and it's probably CPU bound. Anyway, so thanks for taking a look at this old old engine with me. Yeah. Feel free to look at the code again. If you want to look at the code, there should be a link in the description, so you can go look at that stuff. And you can see how many times did I copy and paste all of this GL fixed function stuff in here. All right, see you guys later.